there is a list of vehicles that have an ultra low day supply, very few vehicles on the lot, and they do that because people trust the reliability, the durability, the reputation, and in some cases it's hard to get your hands on some of those highly sought after vehicles. Well, I'm going to share a list of some of the most popular vehicles everybody seems to want with ultra low day supply. You better start searching as soon as you can. Let's get into it now. It's the Corolla. You get either sedan, you get a hatchback, or the Corolla Cross, which is a little bit more SUV style. These vehicles, everybody loves a Corolla. Maybe they're not the most passion-driven vehicles, but for people who just love to drive around and get from A to B and do it on almost no money, these vehicles are easy to own and easy to operate. And actually, in some of them, they actually look somewhat stylish. This is a good-looking Corolla right here. And these vehicles range anywhere from 28 to about 34 days supply, meaning that they're going to be relatively hard to get your hands on brand new. And certainly one of those vehicles you're probably going to have to order, throw your deposit down, and wait for a period of time. The day supply on these was only around 30 on average. So it's one of those vehicles, clearly, even if it did hit the lot, got snatched up very quickly. Again, the delivery on time is a little bit skewed, but ultimately, most people who trust reliability will go directly to a Toyota. There's one of the next vehicles that's one of the hardest to find on the new car market in the last year or so, in the last few years really. And while it's a Super Duty, there are a lot of Super Duty options by Ford, the big blue oval. Of course, lots of 350s around. You can find lots of these on the lots, whether you're looking for a single rear wheel or a dually. There's lots of options for the 350. And the F-150 is one of the most popular full-size trucks, but half-ton. Right there, the F-150 Lariat, very popular truck, some of the best-selling in the nation. And then you step all the way up. So you've got the 150, 250, 350, and then you have the F550, which here is essentially a cab vehicle, which allows you to configure this. Usually put service bodies or cabs on top here for your heavy-duty needs. But these vehicles here, what do you do in between? You don't want one like this, but you want something that's more of a pickup truck. You don't want the 350, maybe you find it a wee bit overstrained for some of your heavy-duty towing capacity or needs. The 350 may not be it. The 250 is way too soft. So this is the truck that a lot of people wanted, and it was a very hard one to find. Here we have the F450 Platinum, and these were very hard to come by. You do get the 6.7 liter Power Stroke turbo diesel, beautiful automatic transmission. Naturally, look at this, you get the FX4 package, gorgeous vehicle. All of the extra amenities for towing, some of the heaviest weight available exists in this particular model, because this is the heaviest truck you can possibly get without going onto a full service body. Now here you got step guards, beautiful tail lights, of course big hitch on there, and the blue oval. Dually, naturally, you get of course the slider in the back and beautiful color matching throughout. Well, naturally this one is a platinum, so you're going to find all of the amenities in this, and with leather and heated and cooled seats, you're going to find all of the luxury features that you could ever possibly need. So unfortunately, if you were looking for one of these, there's only 32 days supply according to Car Edge. And what that means is if they sold every single vehicle across the nation, it would take 32 days if they didn't produce any more. So there's very few left. There's only a month of inventory left on the market on average for these vehicles at the current selling rate, because they're popular, they're large, they're heavy, they're large and in charge. And of course, the 350 does it for most people, but sometimes you just need to step it up one more level. And look, even the height of this, the mirror here on the 350 versus the mirror on the 450. The 450 sits higher, it tows more, it's a heavier duty truck on all accounts, and that's why they're ultimately hard to find.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
Another one on the list is a Toyota product. Not a big shocker when we think about the Toyota RAV4. Popular vehicle. A lot of people love them. They're easy to own, they're very affordable, and they're very reliable. A lot of them come with hybrid drivetrains as well, and that's part of the reason why a lot of them are harder to get for a period of time. Now that being said, Toyota you will find on the list because of the delivery on time method. In other words, they don't load up the lots with a lot of inventory. They are now. You're starting to see more and more vehicles like the Tundras and the Tacomas starting to hit the lot. But a lot of these sought after vehicles, they just know they're delivering them on time. If you go into a Toyota dealer and you sit down and you say, I want one of those vehicles, they're probably gonna have to put a deposit, and then you might have to wait because they don't want to load up their inventory too much. That said, these vehicles, according to statistics, are around 31 days supply. So in other words, you're not going to find a lot of these laying around, and the ones that you do find are going to be generally highly sought after. People are going to be chasing these down, and they're going to be hard to come by. Standard looking headlights, a little basic front grille, and of course gorgeous wheels on this. Love the mirrors, two-tone, that looks really spanky too. The interior is very, very nice with a little bit of contrast stitching, brushed aluminum, and perforated seats. Look, even a sunroof on top. You can't go wrong with a lot of the detailing. The modern day RAV4s are a cute vehicle, but essentially the RAV4 by Toyota, in this case it's a limited all-wheel drive, are essentially a Lexus NX in a simpler skin. A few less features, a few less options, and in some cases the drivetrains are slightly less potent, but it's ultimately the same vehicle, and they're very easy to live with. People love them, therefore they're hard to find because there's so few of them. Days supply is very low, and at 31 days, it just means that good luck in finding one. There you go, I found one. This is what you need to buy if you're thinking about buying something small, frugal, affordable, and reliable. Here's a popular one. One of these vehicles here, we're talking about the Cadillac Escalade. These feature a lot of strong engines, 6.2 liter V8s. Of course, they have all of the amenities, the luxury appointments, and they definitely have a badge that's very popular. A lot of people see these as rock stars, movie stars driving around in these. Quite often you see them with tinted windows, black, and everybody associates these Cadillac Escalades with a sign of luxury. And people love luxury, but it's a domestic product too by General Motors, so it feels like something that's almost attainable and certainly something that people can relate to. But here we have, this is not the latest, this is certainly not the greatest, but it's an example of the model that people are very much gravitating to. Of course, you get great headlights and big oversized wheels, fold away mirrors, they get all kinds of chrome, gorgeous interior that is better than almost anything else in the business. But the beauty is you have a lot of truck-like features, and the Escalade has towing capacity that exceeds or meets at least some of their half-ton brethren. These are definitely vehicles that you can tow, haul, move people around in, and they have all of the luxury looks and designs that people love. Of course, they have some unique styling in some of the older generations. The badge means a lot to a lot of people. And even though the reliability isn't necessarily top shelf with handles that have known to come off and 6.2 liter V8 engines that certainly have had some issues in recent years, some transmission problems and recalls associated with that, the point is the Cadillac Escalade with 27 days supply is absolutely proof that people want these vehicles. So much in fact that when you consider the days supply on the market, Honda, Toyota, Lexus, those vehicles were always hovering around that 20, 30, 40 days supply. Here's an example of a vehicle that people want, and there's not a lot of them because they sell like hotcakes. If you're liking the video so far, you're gonna love the rest of the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the notifications bell to know when the next great video hits. Another vehicle that makes the list is the RX series of vehicles that are particularly the hybrid. Here's an RX 350. This now has, since 22, been upgraded or changed to a 2.4 liter turbo 4. Normally it was a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 that switched it up. But since then, they've also continuously had hybrid drivetrains. And the RX SUVs have been very, very popular. And a lot of people love the brand. Toyota, Lexus have always maintained some level of significant reliability. And so that's why the RX hybrids have been very popular. As a matter of fact, during the shortages back in 2020, 21, 22, it was actually hard to get any hybrid vehicles. And that's part of the reason why there were shortages. Sure, you get the LC 500 mirrors, you get glass on top, beautiful styling around this vehicle, but it's a gorgeous unit. Even with that light bar in the back, lots of little detailing. It's a wonderful vehicle, but it's also reliable. And because of the hybrid and the chip shortages, it was actually hard to get vehicles, especially in the hybrid. Now they're trying to play catch up, and ultimately this means it's a vehicle that's been on back order for some time, and 22 days supply is roughly where they sit. They're still not going to really catch up. Matter of fact, people constantly order these. They're popular, they're reliable, and they're just the flow of these vehicles in the dealer, out, in, out. Just means and obviously signifies that people trust these vehicles and love them for the performance as well as the reliability and the luxury appointments. Here's the next one that is on the list with 21 days supply. Is it no shocker? Toyota, again, you know, delivery on time method, of course, that's part of the aspect. But of course, this is one of the most reliable SUVs. And more importantly, remember, the Highlander gives you something that many other Toyota SUVs don't give you, and that's a third row. So it's a practical vehicle that fills a segment that's very hard to fill. For those people that need that third row, this is one of the few selections. Sure, you can get an SR5 4Runner, and there's the odd select vehicle, but you get certain trim levels, and other ones you can't get it at all. You know, RAV4 you can't get it, and you can't get it in a lot of bigger vehicles yet. This vehicle fills that gap. It's a great vehicle. Of course, the older ones had that 3.5 liter V6. Now, of course, they're stepping into the 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which appears to be relatively reliable these days. Nowhere certainly like the V35A that you're finding with that 3.4 liter twin turbo in the Tundra that's having issues. So far, these engines seem to be holding up quite well. The 2.4 liters are quite durable. So far, we're seeing with this Highlander, it's a very practical vehicle. You've got the backup camera. This is an XLE all-wheel drive. So while it's not the top trim, it's certainly up there. XSE as well. And of course, you can get different variations, hybrid systems. And look, you get some great detailing like this. Color matching here. Beautiful sunroof glass on top, and an interior that's not the most intense in the industry, but it's one that's functional, ergonomically happy, and certainly has all of the elements that you need: functionality and durability. So generally speaking, you won't find too many of these sitting out on the car lots, and you pretty much have to order them. But with a very low day supply, it's not a surprise. They're reliable, they're easy to use, and they have that third row. It's Toyota. And this is starting to get a little monotonous, isn't it? I mean, Toyota, we know that they're popular. We know the delivery on time was an impact. People wanted them. They trusted them. And at a time when vehicles are transitioning to very technical, vehicles are getting more complex, direct to fuel injected, vehicles with turbos, vehicles with 3-cylinder turbos, vehicles with CVTs, there's more and more technology abound, and people just want something that they can trust. Hence, if you need a minivan, if you need something to haul the family around, if you need something to go long distance, and if you need something you can trust, and especially in a case like this with the Toyota, and you'll notice you have the blue, that means you've got a hybrid on top of it, it's even more practical. So as you look, it's a very basic setup, but it is a very sporty looking van. If you can say vans look sporty, I personally think they're kind of attractive looking, and I never thought I'd say that about a minivan. But I mean, look, you've got these nice contours here. They've really done a nice job with this, as much as you can do with a minivan, to continually still make it practical, to still give you that head space in the back and the luggage capacity. You're still doing what you have to do, which is making a vehicle as bulky as possible. But they do it in a way that still now has a little bit of style. Look, they have these nice contours here. It's good looking here, gunmetal gray. You got this big sliding door, and you can even have some of the other nice details like chrome accents here, all kinds of chrome detailing there. Nice fold-away mirrors. But the interiors are comfortable. They're not certainly Bentley standards, but they will work, and they're ergonomically friendly. So the Toyota Sienna is just one of those vehicles so many people love to own, and they were hard to get a hold of. At 20 days supply, according to Car Edge, that means this vehicle here was one of those in hot demand and certainly in low numbers. The Toyota Sienna. Certainly one of the most popular vehicles that you could ever imagine is a Toyota Prius Prime. There was a time, because of the chip shortages, because the fact that people love hybrid systems, they love vehicles that are durable, and this was a remake of the old ho-hum version. This one here now is a very cab-forward design. I personally like the looks of this. I'm not gonna even fib. Look, you get the laser cut rims there. Look, nice black trim. And of course, look, trim along the side. It has a very sporty look. And look, even a big glass on the roof. Beautiful vehicle, and it definitely elevates the Prius to a whole new level. Look at the vehicle, look at the slope back on it. We have the Prius, and it's the Prime, as I've already mentioned. A very hard vehicle to get. I know people that had to wait 2 to 3 years back in when this vehicle first came out, and that was a sign that, well, the chips were an issue and people just really wanted this vehicle. It was a whole new remake of the brand, of the style, of the model for Toyota. And even with these great headlights and cab forward look, it was something that stood out. It was a very new, fresh design, and everybody needed to have one. Now, sure, it's not a Ferrari. I mean, look at the small brakes on that vehicle. They're very tiny. They don't fill up the cavity there at all, but that's not the point. A lot of times these hybrid vehicles have enough regenerative braking to actually slow the vehicles down themselves, and they do just fine themselves. So that's one of the most popular vehicles, and almost exclusively impossible to find on the used car, and certainly on the new car market when you had to wait. And with all of that said, be sure to check out that list of some of the worst sellers. Nobody wants them, nobody cares. Those vehicles are a mess. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.